Welcome back to Science Says, our classroom podcast show where we discover, learn, and examine the science topics we are learning in first grade. Today's special guest, Felecia, is one of our class members who will be explaining an activity we did in class today and what it taught us. Felecia, could you introduce yourself and give us a brief overview of the activity?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Felecia and I am in first grade in Miss Wilder's classroom. We did an activity that taught us about forces.
Great. We learned about this at the very beginning of the unit, but I wanted to go deeper and explore some other important things about how forces work. Now, what was the first step of the activity?
Well, first we were given a stone, a popsicle stick, a rubber band, and a straw. Then directions said to try and move the stone without using our hands. Our lab report then asked us to figure out which object moved our stone the farthest with one push.
And did you have any initial ideas about this? What was your hypothesis? How did you test it?
I thought the popsicle stick would move the object the most with one push. All the other objects were flimsier. To see if my predictions were right, I tried to push the rock with each object. It didn't move at all when I pushed it with the rubber band. The rock moved a little when I pushed it with the straw, but then the straw bent and it didn't do anything. The stone barely moved at all. When I used the popsicle stick, the rock moved the most.
Great observations, Felecia. I like your thinking on this activity. Your first thoughts were that the popsicle stick would make the rock move the farthest with one push, and your end results agree with this hypothesis. What was the next question in the activity?
Next, it asked us to move the rock with the rubber band, but still not using our hands.
And what were your initial ideas for how you could do this? If you already observed that the rock did not move when pushed by the rubber band, how else could you use it to move the rock?
Well, I remembered learning in class that force is when you push or pull on something. Since pushing the rock didn't work, I tried pulling it with the rubber band, and it moved.
Awesome job. I can tell you have been paying close attention in class. Now, what was different about the way the rock moved when you pushed it with the popsicle stick versus when you pulled it with the rubber band? Did the rock move in the same direction both times?
The rock moved away from me when I pushed it with the stick, but it moved towards me when I pulled it towards me.
Exactly. So even though both pushing and pulling are forces that act on an object, they affect the motion of the object in different ways. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Great. Now what was the last part of the activity?
The last part asked us to get a ping pong ball from our teacher. It asked us to hold the ping pong ball in one hand and the rock in the other. Then it asked us to record what we thought was different about the way the ball and the rock fell. We talked about it as a class and decided that the main difference was that the rock was much heavier than the ball. Then it asked us to try to move the rock and the ping pong ball using the straw without the straw touching either of them.
Oh, interesting. How did you do this and what did you observe?
I tried to blow through the straw to move both of them, but the rock didn't move at all. The pong ball moved pretty far though.
Why do you think this happened?
Well, since the rock is heavier, it takes more to move it. But the ping pong ball is very light, and so it was easier to move.
Wow, I don't think I could have explained that any better, Felecia. So now I want you to think about how you moved the ball using the straw. Even though the straw doesn't actually touch the ping pong ball, it still makes it move. Do you think this is an example of a force?
I'm not sure, but I think so. I think a force is anything that makes something to change its motion, so I think the air I blew from the straw is still a force even though you can't really see it.
Great thinking. I'm afraid we are all out of time for today, but this sets up our next science activity about magnets perfectly. Next time we will talk about how magnets act on objects and how they represent a different type of force. Thank you so much for joining me today, Felecia. You did a great job. Thanks, Science Says listeners, for tuning in for this special broadcast on forces in motion. This is Miss Wilder.
And this is Felecia.
And may the force be with you.